Welcome, everyone. We are going to allow another minute or two to allow folks to continue to join us and trickle in. We'll get started briefly. Thanks for your patience and thanks for your time. Buenas noches. Gracias a los que nos acompañan. Welcome, everyone. Bienvenidos. Thanks for joining us this evening. We know it's late and after a long rainy day here in the Valley, but thanks for joining us. Before we jump into the content, we'll actually allow folks to transition onto interpreter languages if that is what they need. And we have a visual here for that. There is an icon at the bottom of the screen to support. Si nos está acompañando y necesita interpretación, puede cambiar el idioma en su pantalla en la sección de abajo, en donde tiene el icono que es como un mundo, y seleccionar el idioma de español en este caso o cualquier otro que necesite. Thank you. We will go through the agenda next, and I see some questions coming through about about the format of this meeting. So this is a webinar format, which means folks are able to join, listen, and see the speakers and observe the slide deck. We ask for your participation via the question and answer tool that is available to you at the bottom of the screen as well. If you're on your phone or computer, if you don't see it, it might be at there's three little dots that say more, and you might be able to find it there. But we have the question and answer feature available for you to pop in your questions, and that will allow us to answer them as we go through the different agenda items. And if you want, thank you. For today's agenda, we'll start off with the rulemaking update, jump onto employment-related daycare, and finalize the informational component of our meeting with the stabilization grant monitoring update. At that point, we would expect to be around the 6:30 mark. We will transition onto another link for those who are interested in joining us for the DELC strategic planning conversation. We recognize all of the expertise and all of the amazing work that you all do, and want to spend some time, albeit perhaps a little bit short, to dive into some questions that we have regarding DELC's first strategic plan, which is due, which we anticipate to have completed by the end of June. And that portion of the meeting will be a meeting format where folks will be able to be on camera and off mute, and we'll do breakout sessions activities. We'll share a little bit more about this, but just wanting to flag the agenda to let you know what to expect for today. Again, the first half of today is webinar, and then the second half is an optional as well component, which will be more interactive on a different Zoom link, which we will share here as we transition over. And great flag. We will answer questions through the webinar as we touch on each subject. So we will deliver content, but please, if there's any questions that you have around what we're presenting, you can drop that into the question and answer box, and we will make sure to touch on those as we can. Some of them we might be able to answer in written form. So we'll do it that way for those of you who maybe haven't joined us before. All right. And with this, I'll hand it over to Alicia Gardner. Thank you.
Thanks, Karina. Well, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this evening after a long, busy day. And if you're taking care of children during the day, thank you even more so for joining us after that very long day of taking care of kids. We appreciate you so much and really excited to share the information that we have for you this evening. My name is Alicia Gardner. I am the Child Care Licensing Division Director. And I just have one slide for you this evening to provide you some updates on some rulemaking that we have been doing in childcare licensing. So we've been pretty busy with rulemaking in CCLD, or Childcare Licensing Division. This slide reflects a lot of those changes. The very first and probably the most major rule update I have to bring to you this evening is that we have revised our certified center rules. First of all, our new revision of the certified center rules is a total revision. The rule book is completely reorganized for clarity. For example, now all policies that any center is required to have is listed in a section called policies. So we hope that you find this more user-friendly and easier to access. We've also rewritten our rules in easier to understand plain language, and we have incorporated a lot of our interpretations over the years that we have been using right into the rules. So that way it is transparent and easy for you to access. Because there are a lot of changes, we have a number of supports set up for you for the certified center rules. We do have a video series available to you on our YouTube channel, which will go into depth regarding the changes in each rulebook section. I highly recommend you watch these videos if you're needing to understand what the rules are saying, and you can use your rulebook as a learning companion to those rules. I have a link for you for that this evening, and we put it in the chat. We also have a new library of technical assistance documents, which you can request from your licensing specialist when you are implementing these new rules. Your licensing specialist is your best resource if you do have any questions specific to your program. And remember, we know it takes time to learn new rules and apply them to your program with a revision as major as this. And we will offer you plenty of time to understand the rules, learn the rules, get technical assistance from us, and then make a plan with your licensing specialist on how to implement any changes. Secondly, effective January 1st, providers own children in certified family and registered family care for children 10 years of older that belong to that provider. So providers own children 10 years of age and older will not count in capacity or staff to child ratios unless that child has a disability or special need that requires a higher level of care. We implemented these rules due to a change at the legislature coming from House Bill 2468. Also in effect in January, we have a new rule set called General Rules for All Child Care Facilities. This was implemented as a result of House Bill 3558 passing. The rule set contains general rules and guidance for how we administer very important pieces of the Child Care Licensing Division program. For example, we have sections in this apply to all rule set regarding complaints and investigations. When we investigate complaints, how we investigate complaints, and how we will proceed with those as a division. We also have a section on exempt prohibition, unlawful care, civil penalties related to unlawful care, operating hours, and care that does not require a license. And we also have a section in this rule set called union representation in contested case hearings. These rules were created and based off of already existing informal policies that existed in Child Care Licensing Division, and nothing has changed with the creation of these rules except for the union representation in contested case hearings section. The reason these have been put into rule is that you now have an easy to locate rule set, which will explain CCLD's policies and procedures to you. Should you have any questions on these topics or need to understand how CCLD will proceed regarding these topics. We also have some changes to our Central Background Registry, or CBR, which stem from some legislation that passed in 2023. Generally speaking, these are very minor changes and will not largely impact typical individuals who are enrolled in the CBR. The bills that passed in 2023, which are House Bill 2599, Senate Bill 283, and House Bill 3558, required DELC to make changes in the CBR that include waiving enrollment fees for individuals who provide respite care through a contract with CCLD. And also we have changed eligibility for specific enrollment populations when we are using what's called limited enrollment. We've also clarified exclusions for early childhood special education, so EI, ECSE staff that are already employed by the school districts. DELC has also made updates to the administrative rules for certified school age centers. These rules are minor and are not major change, but they are changes nonetheless, and we have made these changes in order to align with rule language in the recently adopted rules for certified centers. The changes also include the use of more inclusive language, clarifying unclear language that we learned along the way could stand to be clarified even more. And then we removed some of the redundant rules that were found in that rule set. Again, your licensing specialist will take time with you at your next licensing visit to make a plan with you on what your next steps are to implement. And we will be providing lots of technical assistance and allowing programs ample time to come into compliance with any new changes that may impact you. We're all in a learning space with these new rules, and our system recognizes that, and we will come alongside you while you work on your implementation. And if you have any questions, we are here to help. So please reach out to your licensing specialist, or you can call our 1-800 number on our customer service line, 1-800-556-6616. Thank you.
Thank you, Alicia. We have a couple general questions, and I know we do need to move on to other topics for this evening. But one question we had was, are the general rules for all centers mixed into the certified center rules, or are they an additional rule set? Could you explain that?
That's an excellent question. So we will be mailing out an addendum to your rule book that you have for your facility rules. This is a separate rule set with a separate number, but in our future printings of rule books, we do intend to include it so it's all in one place for you when you need it as a reference in your facility rule book.
Thank you, Alicia. And I thought I saw another general, so they will be mailed. You just answered that one. And there's one that just came in that I think is helpful for just a review of the rulemaking process. Was there an estimate of costs associated with the new rules? Could you explain a little bit about the rulemaking process and the fiscal and equity analysis that's done?
Absolutely. So whenever we move to promulgate rules or have rules promulgated by the Early Learning Council, we do run what's called a Rules Advisory Committee, which is available and open to the public, but also we select attendees through an application process. And in that Rules Advisory Committee, or what we call RAC, we do run through with a group of community members and interested parties who are probably have a stake in these rules. And we run through fiscal impacts as well as equity impacts. We also ask for clarity on the rules and make sure that we've got the clarity and the requirements correct. So we do run through those with community members, and that's a little bit about the rulemaking process.
Thank you, Alicia. And we have some that we can answer via chat or if people want to follow up with their licensing specialists. But I think we need to move on to our next topic. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, Alicia, and still seeing some of those questions come through. But again, some of these, your licensing specialists will be your best support for. For this next portion, I welcome Jennifer Idas, and I might have mispronounced that completely, but I'll hand it off to you to introduce yourself and share some important updates with us. Thank you.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Yes, my name is Jennifer Eras. I'm the lead policy analyst with the Child Care Assistance Program Office. So primarily my team works on the employment-related daycare program and everything that surrounds that. So we do have a few updates for you today. January 1st, we had some pretty exciting changes that happened with our provider rates. So the first thing is that our maximum rates did increase effective January 1st. So that's for childcare that was provided in January. So if you submitted your January billing forms, then those should be reflecting the new rates. If you had rates that that the previous maximum rates didn't quite cover. And so that will be, like I said, effective January 1st, 2024, moving onward. And then with that, we updated the rates on the DELC website. So those are updated there. You also should have received a hard copy, like a mailing of an insert that you can put into your ERDC provider guide. And so there's several different places where you can find those rates, and we can definitely put a link to those into the chat as well. Another change that happened on January 1st is that we now have a 9% additional payment for any billing forms that are processed late. So a late billing form, there are a couple different definitions here. So for home-based providers, and that would include both registered and certified providers, as well as the license exempt family, friend, and neighbor providers. If a payment is issued more than 4 days after a legible and complete billing form has been received by the direct pay unit, then it would be considered late. That processing time, it starts the first business day after the billing form was received by the direct pay unit. For center-based care, the definition is same thing except for 7 business days. So if you believe that your payment is late, there is an online form that you can submit. You can also download a copy of that or call the direct pay unit and request for them to submit the late payment request. And then those will be reviewed. And if it's found that the payment was issued late, then a 9% additional payment will come in the same manner that any other payments come from the ERDC program. So if you get direct deposit, it would be direct deposit. If you get a paper check mailed out, it would come in that manner as well. The nice thing about the online form is it does request all of the information, so you can't submit an incomplete request. And then we have staff at the direct pay unit that would review all of those requests and reach out to you directly with the outcome of it. So as you can see on here, we do have the phone number for the direct pay unit. And like I said, you can call them and request that additional payment in that manner as well. And then next slide. And I'm not sure how many of you are aware of this, but starting back on November 3rd, the employment-related daycare program did go on to a wait list. So essentially, there were quite a few changes that were made to the program over the last year. Because of that, the program is working a lot better for families. Families are able to access and keep their childcare subsidy a lot longer, which is fabulous. But with the increasing caseloads, we also did not get additional funding to support caseloads that are this high. So these are the highest caseloads that we've seen for the employment-related daycare program for at least the last 2 decades, if not ever. So we had announced back on September 20th, just to try and give families a little and providers a heads up that the waitlist was coming, that effective November 3rd, the waitlist was going to be in place. So anyone who had applied by 11:59 on November 3rd would be looked at for ERDC eligibility. Other than that, anyone who has applied afterwards, they're screened to see if they meet an exemption or a bypass to the wait list. So there are some families that can bypass the wait list. So we always encourage families to check with us if they have a childcare need, specifically TANF families. We also have families that are reapplying for benefits, and then we have a few other ways that families can bypass a wait list. So we always encourage families to apply if they think they may be eligible. And basically with our current budget where we're standing right now, we do not have sufficient funding in order to maintain the caseload levels that we have right now. So the wait list was the step that we could take to try and slow down the growth of the caseload. And we will see what happens. We're anxiously awaiting this next legislative session. And next slide, please. And so this visuals are always great for me. So I love seeing this. As you can see on this slide, throughout the last biennium, our caseload was really between like 8,000 and 10,000. As of January 2023, you can see that's another caseload number of the 10,000 that was highlighted. That was right around the time that we expanded the childcare to cover students who are not employed. So previously we did cover some student hours, but the parents had to be employed as well. So that was one expansion that started. We also cover high school or GED completion for those young parents who are under the age of or 20 or under. So they don't have to be going to higher education. It could be high school or GED. But as you can see, the caseload started to increase and kind of creep up until that July 2023 when we did an additional expansion. So in July 2023, we expanded the caseload even more to cover families who qualify for TANF, which is Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, otherwise known as the cash grant or cash assistance. So as providers, you know, we had two separate childcare programs. We had the TANF Jobs Childcare Program, and we had the Employment Related Daycare Program. This folded those both over into one program. We also stabilized the eligibility. So you would see families, their cases will remain open for longer. There are fewer reasons why a case would possibly close. And then right about that time, our caseload just started to shoot up. So the most recent is just over 16,000. We don't have a whole lot of data, but as you can see, starting in November, it kind of tapered off a little bit. So that's when the wait list was implemented. And the next slide, we've got a little more information to look at the caseload in a different way. So you may hear us talk about active caseload versus a total caseload or inactive caseload. So this top line in green, that's showing the families that have open ERDC and they're connected to a childcare provider. So we're issuing out billing forms, we're issuing out payments. And so that's a number that we're tracking pretty closely. And then this dark blue line on the bottom, those are the families who have open benefits, but they're not connected to a provider yet. So this is really important to look at. We have over 4,000 families that still do not have childcare providers. Even with the wait list, they have open benefits. Their benefits will remain open for their entire certification period. But just so you all are aware, we do have a large portion of our caseload of families who are still looking for childcare or trying to get a childcare provider approved to receive payments. And then the next slide. And then here is, this is an infographic or a data sheet that we've got that will be available online. So if you're interested in the caseload data and watching to see what's happening with that, the number of families served, the number of providers that we have who are approved to receive ERDC payments, this information is available online. As you can see, there's a website right there that will be updated on a regular basis. And then we've got, there's the little light blue box. We will be reporting out the number of families who are on the wait list. I believe currently we're right around 1,600 families are on the wait list. But once we finish getting that data report set up, we'll add that number on there, and then this will be updated on a regular basis. this is just an example, but as you can see, there's the state level data. You can also click on it to view it by county level. So if you're interested to see what's happening in your local area, then that's available as well. And I believe that's all I had. So I don't know that we had any questions pop through on the chat.
Thank you, Jen. I don't see any ERDC questions either in the Q&A or on Facebook, but thank you so much. There's a link in the chat for the ERDC page of the DELC website. If people do have questions, they could follow up with us there.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move right over to this next portion, the Child Care Stabilization Grant Review, and welcome back to Dawn, who's joined us a while back. So thanks for being with us.
Yeah, hello everybody. Great to be back. I wanted to share some information. You want to go to the next slide, Gabby, please? That as part of the Child Care Stabilization Grants, there was a requirement for states to do federal monitoring of those grants. And so we are keeping it really looking at the 3 areas that were requirements for the grants in terms of paying all employees full compensation, at least 20% of the total grant to increase compensation, and providing relief from co-payments. Some of the other requirements we were able to do through our database. We had some internal controls. Next slide. So we have our approach to this is to really provide a lot of support to providers. We know that for many of you, if you were selected, this is maybe the first time that you've had a grant, let alone a grant review. And so we've got the DELC Stabilization Grant Team. I'm on it as well. And we've also are working with First Children's Finance to provide direct technical assistance for you folks. We're flexible with how the information is submitted. We did provide an online tool, but you can submit it another way. You can provide paper. We can give a paper form upon request. So of the over 3,000 grants that were issued, we randomly selected 104 programs were randomly selected to have a grant review. We sent letters out during the week of January 8th and emails. So if you have not received an email or a letter from us, you were not selected to be your grant reviewed. We're giving folks until the 104 that were selected, they have until March 29th to submit any information we've requested. And again, our approach is one of really supporting providers of the 104 who were selected to provide them that technical assistance and support so that we can work together to successfully review the grant. On the next slide, we've got some resources available. If you have any questions, you were selected, or even if you weren't and have questions, you can email us at eccgrants@delc.oregon.gov. We also have a website that has frequently asked questions and some additional information about the grant review process. And so, yeah, that's, I think, all I've got. Karina, just wanted to help. Just wanted to give people a heads up if you'd heard anything, but also know that if you haven't received anything, you were not selected.
Thank you, Dawn. Al, I don't know if there were questions for this portion.
I am not seeing any currently. Sorry, they're jumping because some are being added. I don't see any specific, so I think we are okay to transition.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Gabby Hernandez, and I'm the Early Learning Council Administrator here at DELC. I just wanted to jump on and actually kind of share a little bit of an overview of our next activity, which is optional. So Dawn's content really kind of ends the information session, but wanted to provide a little bit of context on what we wanted to do with folks if you're willing to join us for an additional activity that will actually be on a separate Zoom link just so that we can be more engaged, have cameras on. And so DELC is currently in the process of developing their first agency strategic plan. As a new agency, there's quite a few components that have to go into that, and want to just highlight that on the next slide. So DELC is really looking at three components as we're really start diving into the development of this plan. We're looking into the operations portion and how DELC operates as a new agency. We are linking in the cross-sector work in the Raise Up Oregon Early Childhood System Plan, which is a 5-year plan that outlines a cross-sector vision that was put together with DELC being one of 6 agencies to really create a vision for early childhood in Oregon. And then it'll also take into account the policy and program aspect and DELC's role in supporting children and families birth to 5 and through age 12. And really hoping that many of you will join us in this next optional session, just because we really do want to hear from you all and get feedback from everyone as we really put together this plan. I think it'll be really valuable information. And I think that about wraps it up. Yeah, also the plan is due in June, just to provide some highlight. And along with the DELC strategic plan, the Child Care Development Fund is also due at the same time. So we're really wanting to engage with folks during this time to kind of develop both of those plans at the same time.
Thank you, Gabby. This is the last slide on our slide deck here. I know folks had, people had some questions, and thanks to DELC staff who have been responding via writing to many of those. I don't believe we had questions come through Facebook this afternoon either, but again, your licensing specialist is one of your greatest resources. There was the slide deck prior to, we'll provide the slide deck onto the website in the coming day or two for you to be able to access and go through these different slides as well and have the contact information. There's a lot of great resources in the chat, so we invite you to copy and paste those, save those, or open those on your browser. I just want to cue out anything that has come up that we want to address in terms of questions. If not, we can move on to the Zoom meeting transition portion.
I appreciate you double checking, Karina. If your question has not yet been answered, if you are not anonymous, we do have your contact information, so we can follow up with you after tonight's meeting if we haven't yet answered your question. So thank you again for being here, and the Zoom link is now in the chat for everyone.
Thank you. Yes, so just one more flag. There's the Zoom link in the chat. We cannot do breakout groups in this webinar format while we're transitioning over to a Zoom meeting. I know it's a little different than what we've done, but we want to be able to do something a little more interactive. So click on that Zoom link. We'll take about 4 minutes or so to allow folks to transition. It'll ask a couple questions to do a very brief registration, but it should allow you to jump into the meeting as soon as you complete that. And we'll spend the next 25 minutes or so in that session with some breakout group activity answering 4 specific questions to help inform the DELC strategic plan, as Gabby mentioned. Again, and thank you to everyone who has joined us. This concludes the informational component of our meeting, but we'll see you once again in March.